everyone. Welcome to Spill the Teh, a podcast by Penang Institute where we dive into compelling stories, groundbreaking ideas, and visionary leaders. I'm your host, Beh May Ting. In a world of shifting geopolitics and economic tremors, business as usual is no longer an option. For Penang, the mandate is clear: evolve or be left behind. To explore how pressure can be transformed into progress and to inspire us to keep pushing forward, we are joined today by Malaysia's Minister of Entrepreneur Development and Cooperatives, YB Steven Sim Chee Keong. His path in public service has taken him through several key roles: Minister of Human Resources, Deputy Minister of Finance, and before that, Deputy Minister of Youth and Sports. He is of course also the Member of Parliament for Bukit Mertajam and the Penang State Chair of the Democratic Action Party and the Deputy Secretary General of DAP. And for those who may not know, Steven has long been connected to Penang Institute, first as part of the team as Senior Executive Officer and now as a member of our board. YB Steven, welcome back to PI, and it's great to have you on Spill the Teh.
Hi, Dr. Beh. Good morning. Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure.
Although we are drinking coffee now.
Yes, very important to have coffee in the morning.
Not tea, but coffee.
Yeah. So to start off and to warm up, we're going to go through a quick fire round.
Okay.
All right. First off, nasi kandar or char kway teow?
Nasi kandar.
All right. Printed book or e-book?
E-book now.
E-book now, okay. If you could have dinner with any figure from Malaysian history, who would it be?
Not exactly Malaysian, but this is a figure from late 19th century, the late Qing dynasty, Ku Hongming. He was born in Penang. He was born in Brown's estate in Penang, and I think he was a Hokkien boy like me from a small place. Went to study in Europe and eventually became one of the defining scholar in late Qing and also early Republic of China history. I would love to talk to him.
Why?
So first of all, he was living in a very revolutionary age, to put it bluntly. But I think he is like many Penangites, he's a man of the world. He's exposed to different thoughts. Studied in Europe, different countries in Europe. He was in UK and then France, Germany, and then eventually settled down in China at a very pivotal time of the country. So I just want to hear his thought and idea of being a Hokkien boy from small town Penang, making it into the world.
Okay.
What an adventure.
Yeah. What an adventure that must have been, surely, from small town. I wonder which part of Penang, do you know? Any idea?
Brown Estate, probably around Glugo area.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So if you can maneuver through that thought and, well, the vast dishes of nasi kandar, I'm sure we can go into the serious stuff now. Right?
Well, he probably talked about nasi kandar as well because Penang has been cosmopolitan. Probably at the onset of our founding.
So, like, if I can draw some similarities between you and him, right? So, you have gone from a Penang upbringing to right now shaping national policies. How does that journey influence how you think about Penang's future today?
Dr. Beh, I've always been a very, very Penang boy. I was born here. I was born in Chatia, Jelotong. Now we call Telebo Bakau. I grew up in Tosongka, Bukit Mertajam. Went to school here. It's primary school, secondary school. Got married here. Met my wife here. She's also a Penang girl. Eventually, I went to KL to study University Malaya. But I've always thought that the Penang experience has given me a lot of exposure about society, about people, about nation building. Just one example, because my grandfather, paternal grandfather, he was a lorry driver. Till the day he died, literally. I remember that on the day that he passed away, his boss actually came over because he didn't turn up to work. So his boss came in. I was a very little boy, and and I heard this conversation between the boss and my grandmother. Boss said, why didn't Tauke, although he's the boss, he called my Akong Tauke, why didn't Tauke come to work this morning? Then my grandmother pointed somberly to my grandfather's body lying, right? Said, Tauke sudah tidur. So I remember he was a lorry driver till the end of his life. And being a lorry driver, in fact, it happens still today. It is not considered a full-time employment. So you are talking about the nature of the contract is contract for service. So employers do not treat you like a full-time staff where you have your fixed salary, where you have minimum wage, where you have social security. Basically, they were the gig workers before gig workers. That experience taught me something very important. That how do we deal with what I call this precarious working class, who are actually laboring to serve us, but who are not treated in the traditional labor sense of the word. So that was what inspired me to fight for the gig workers legislation. It's a historic legislation last year. My dad was a factory worker. There were no... he was a wage earner. And that gave me an exposure to the manufacturing sector in Penang, which is one of our key sectors. Eventually, of course, when I was in my university, I actually interned at his workplace in the factory where he worked. So it gave me a very hands-on exposure to how the whole manufacturing sector operates. Of course, I also later on after graduation worked in an MNC, a manufacturing plant. So this Penang experience totally shaped my view, my worldview, my knowledge, and have given me the inspiration to do what I do actually today. Yeah.
And from all that experiences of your past and culminating to where you are today, right, as a federal minister, you know, of course we hear of all these stories of people working in the gig sector as well as have their own businesses or like work in a factory and all that. But what then would Penang's strategic role be in Malaysia's economic future?
No, as I said, my understanding, because of the experience growing up in the family of a factory worker and then eventually working in a factory myself, I've called for... Penang has always been the economic frontline state of Malaysia. We were not only the factory of Malaysia, but we were actually the factory of the region, and perhaps even, I don't think it's too much to say we were the factory of the world.
Yeah.
Right? A large part of semiconductor trade flows through this state, not just this country, but this state. But I argue that in order to be sustained in terms of growth, we have to have a mindset shift, right? We have to move from what I call a made in Malaysia or made in Penang model, which was a model that worked for us in the last 50 years. It is not a bad model. I'm not making a value judgment on that model. It worked for us, right? 50 years ago, the late Tun Dr. Lim Chong Yu invited the 8 samurai, the first batch of manufacturers, MNCs, to come to Penang, invested their factory here, built their factory here, created jobs, good jobs, engineering jobs, corporate jobs. It also created the accompanying supply chain. Many Penang people made their first pot of gold through this model, right? And this model is what? You come to Penang because we are cheap. Labor is cheap, utility is cheap, water bill is cheap, input materials are cheap, and then you even get a tax exemption. Many of these companies get tax exemption for the last 50 years. So you come here, even if labor one day, the local workers are not willing to take on lower wages, government allow you to hire foreign workers. So we keep cost cheap for investors. Basically a low cost and low price economic model. This is the made in Penang model.
Yeah.
I argue that in order to move forward, we have to go into what I call Penang 3.0 mode. What is a Penang 3.0 mode? So move from made in Penang to make by Penang. Basically, we have to become, we have to shift from being a cost center, low cost center, to become a value creation center.
All right. And like just tapping on what you just mentioned, right, to shift our mindsets from made in Penang to made by Penang.
Yeah.
Exactly from that, Penang's economy has long been driven by MNCs, as you mentioned just now.
Yeah.
So are we actually doing enough now to build a strong, locally rooted ecosystem of SMEs and startups, perhaps alongside that? Or have we become too dependent on external engines of growth?
As I said, don't get me wrong, Dr. Beh, the MNCs are important. Foreign investments are important. And in fact, that drove our growth in the last 50 years. And that created the SME growth engine. Right? Without MNCs coming here, without the Intels and the Motorola's and the Dells and the Bosch coming here, locals would not have the opportunity to build factories to supply to these big players. We will not be able to develop and create our own technologies, our own equipments, our own machineries. And today, because of that 2.0 model, we are seeing the results. Right? Local companies are able not only to be a second-tier supplier to support the whole first-tier supply chain. We are also creators ourselves. You have companies like Vitrox, Great Techs, these companies that innovate and create new equipments, new machineries, new technology that that it is utilized by the bigger companies. So these are very important. But moving on, what I'm saying is that we have to create more Vitroxes, we have to create more Great Techs. How do we shift from a traditional company like Gi Hiang, Tau Sa Piah and Muak Yu into Penang 3.0? I was just talking to one of the owners of Gi Hiang. So they were famous for very delicious Tau Sa Piah and Muak Yu, right? Sesame oil.
Yes, they were on our podcast before as well.
Okay, well that's nice. That's nice. It's a very old brand. It's over 100 years old, right? But does it mean old brand cannot have a new lease of life in Penang 3.0? No, I think no. Look at their transition. Gi Hiang is telling me they are now, because they have experience of creating high quality sesame oil, which is useful, which is nutritious, especially for mothers in confinement, right? That discovery, that over 100 years of preparation and experience and discovery has led them now into life science. They are going to extract the nutrients from the traditional Muak Yu recipe to be made into pills as a supplement, as a health supplement. So this is Penang 3.0. How do we move from mere doing things for others to creating values? So in other words, you hold in the past when factories come here to build their products, we are only earning from the tail end of the value, right? Because the most valuable part of the product, for example, the design, the patents, the technology, are owned elsewhere, especially overseas. But what we want is that we want Penang company to own that most valuable part. I call it value creation in 4 T's. The first T is talent, right? We've got talents. We want to create and nurture more talents. The second T is technologies. The third T are things. Things basically refers to our products and services. The fourth T is our trademark, basically patents or brands. So how do we create and own values in these 4 T's? Moving on.
And how do you suggest, if we have these 4 T's, right? Talent, technology, things, and trademarks. How then should, we create more Vitroxes and Great Techs? And basically, are there actually any structural barriers, stopping local firms from scaling regionally or globally? Is it financing, regulation, market access, or is it something more fundamental than that?
I think the government of Penang, and perhaps to an extent, the federal government has been investing in a lot of infrastructure, which is very important for the future growth of Penang. Just to give some examples, in the last 2 years, under the leadership of Chief Minister Chow Kwan Yao, the state government, together with the assistance and support of the federal government, has invested over 30 billion ringgit to upgrade and build the ecosystem, infrastructure ecosystem, which is important for the next level of growth. For example, you're talking about water security, new pipes, new treatment plant, new water supply sources, new roads, public transports like LRT, expansion of our airport, new the industrial parks, which we are in desperate need at this point because there's now short of industrial land. So these are some of the investment that's been put in for the last 2 years at least. I'm not even talking about earlier, but in the last 2 years itself, 30 billion has been invested in Penang so that we are prepared for the next level of growth. But what is still what are the gaps? Maybe two things, and out of these two, the fundamental is really our mindset. Right? How do we move on from this low cost, low price model? Because it is very, very tempting. Right? We want everything to be cheap. I just came from a tourism or rather creative industry a conference, and we talk about how we have a large big traffic of tourists. In fact, Malaysia has more tourists coming to our country in the last 2 years compared to some of our neighboring countries, including popular global tourist destination. But the fact remains that despite the high traffic, spending per tourist is still relatively low. Right? Tourists come here, they spend on char kway teow. I know Penang people will say char kway teow is expensive, but you get what I mean, right? They come here, spend a day or two, enjoy a cheap and affordable experience, products and services, without having to invest deeply in the local economy and local society. So similarly, when it comes to manufacturing, it is budget manufacturing. You come here because it is cheap. I think in the last 50 years, nobody went out of Penang to meet investors and say, come to Penang because we are expensive. No, come to Penang because we are cheap. And as a result, all of us have to pay the price. Our kids, they are no longer here. The best of our talents are no longer here. Why? Because the economy is unable to pay them the right amount of wages that they are worth, because it is a low cost, low price economy. So I think mindset have to change, because in order to shift from a low cost, low price to a high value ones, there will be a transitional period of pain. It's like a birth pang, right? You have to, it is difficult because we are used to having everything cheap. I'm not saying things should be expensive, far from it. What I'm saying is that we have to now learn to sell our country and our state not as the cheapest option on the table.
So don't sell ourselves short.
Yes, don't sell ourselves short. We have to say, you come here because we have the best talent, we have the best quality, we have the best technology. This is where we have to shift mindset. Secondly, as a true blue Penang boy, Penang Lang, I would say one major gap is also money lah, right? You want to expand your business, you need money. You want to go up the value chain, you need money. You want to scale up, you need money. You want to create new tech, you want to invest in technology, you need money. I'm not saying that there's no money in Penang. I think there is a lot of money in Penang, right? Old money or new money, but these monies are being locked up. Perhaps in a few sectors like property or equity, right, or share market. What we need to do is to unlock the value of all this capital, so that this capital, some of it can be channeled into productive sector, like we mentioned, high value manufacturing or even high value tourism. How do we do that? I think that is the vision for a Penang financial hub. The Penang financial hub is basically the strategy of the state government to unlock capital both locally and outside of Penang, bring capital into Penang, so that some of this money can be channeled. Okay? We don't want Penang to be merely a playground for the rich, that investors come here to earn fixed income interest from us. No, we want this money that comes in. Well, they should make a good profit, but at the end of the day, at least a portion should be channeled or redirected into building our forties, our talents, our technology, our things, and our trademark.
Right. And in order to go up that value chain, do you think that Penang really, we still sort of lack perhaps market access, or no, not quite?
I think in terms of market access, Malaysia and especially Penang has always hold a very strategic position, whether geographically or geo-economically. Let me explain. I always say that we sit in the middle of three bays, right? And these three bays are the superpower economic zones of the world. To the east, we have the Pearl River Delta Bay area. You're talking about 9 cities in Guangdong, southern China, plus Hong Kong and Macau, 11 cities. This is the superpower economic zone for manufacturing, for scale, for capital. And then to the west, we have the San Francisco Bay Area. This is where your Silicon Valley is, and we have a deep historical connection to MNCs from that area. And this is the superpower zone for disruption, for tech, for innovation. And in our neighborhood, we have the Bay of Bengal, where a quarter of world trade actually passes through this area. So we are, I would say that we are strategically placed when it comes to market access. In fact, locally, if you just look at Malaysia, I think Penang have to integrate ourselves, or rather, the northern states have to integrate ourselves and see ourselves more and more as a if we don't want to call it a united market, at least an integrated market, right? Politics aside, I think we are too bogged down by politics. Which party is governing which state? Yes, campaign all you want during election, but after election, everyone should be focused on the economy, on the well-being of the people. Penang on its own, 1.5, 1.6 million population market. But Penang with Kedah, Perlis, Perak, you're talking about double or even triple the size of our market. So I think in terms of market access, whether domestically or globally, we don't have a problem.
Penang is often held up as a model state, right? And even tapping on your point just now on market access, that shouldn't be the biggest barrier. In fact, we do have market access. We are quite central, and we are very strategically located. Even from the past, historically, Penang is never on its own, right? We are connected.
We've always been cosmopolitan.
Exactly,
and
cosmopolitan.
Global.
Yeah. So, but can Penang really claim its status as a model state if many of our young people still feel like they have to leave to find better opportunities and build their futures elsewhere?
In fact, Dr. Beh, before going into this so-called brain drain and diaspora, I think that is our strength precisely because we were cosmopolitan and global. You know, when I talk to investors, they say, I like to come to Penang, I like to come to Malaysia. Why? Because when I come here, you have a populace that can speak Bahasa Melayu, which is the largest language in Southeast Asia, Indonesia, Singapore, Brunei, and of course Malaysia. And then you have a big population who can speak Chinese, Mandarin, or even different dialects of the Chinese language. Hokkien lah, we are Hokkien lah, but then I can speak Cantonese as well, right? And then you have people who can speak one of the Indian languages, especially Tamil, right?
And English.
And you're not talking about just Indian speaking Tamil, but Chinese in Penang, some of them can speak Tamil. Malay in Penang, some of them can speak Chinese because of our coexistence, because of our diversity. And yes, English, global economic language, our deep understanding of Islam, despite we not being Muslim ourselves, because we have a large population of Islam, Muslims in this country. So we understand how to do trade, how to do business, culture of the with Islamic economies such as the GCC countries. So that cosmopolitan nature of Penang, which is the legacy that we inherited, this is our real heritage, right, has become a strength for us economically today. Okay, the diaspora, or rather the brain drain, I think it is very clear. As I said, our decision to be a low cost, low price economy came with a price, right? Again, I'm not saying it is a bad thing, right? It worked for us at that time. The question now is whether it was continue to work for us, right? My argument is no, right? This is one clear example. The consequence of a low cost, low price economy is that you cannot pay your people well. Our sons and daughters, Penang talents. People ask me, does Penang actually has talent? I say we have talent, but our talent is in Singapore. Our talent is in Australia. Our talent is in Europe or America or London. We have talents, but we don't have the money, or rather we have the money. We are not unlocking the value to retain our talent. And this is what we want to do in Penang 3.0, to ensure that there is enough motivation, not just economically, but in terms of the environment of living.
Make Penang more sticky.
Make Penang more sticky. Okay. Yeah, I like your terms. Make Penang more sticky. Yeah. I think there is a lot of attraction for the diaspora, because when I was in the labour ministry, I meet a lot of Malaysian diaspora, especially from Penang. A lot of them wants to come back to Malaysia, to Penang, right? And I don't see, you see, I don't take an approach that the diaspora is problematic in the sense that they are traitors. No, I think I see our diaspora as a loan to the world. We pinjam to the world. Even if we cannot get back the principal today, we can receive interest in terms of their experience, in terms of their network, in terms of their skills, right? And one day, when these people come back, they will bring all this back home. The question is, how do we make them want to come home? We are in the luck because, yes, money is important. We have to make sure we pay well, we pay our workers well, we pay our people well, but at the same time, we know that money is not everything. Salary, wages is not everything, and this is not anecdotal. Surveys have shown, HR surveys have shown that at least 40-50% of workers are choosing or prioritizing working environment, living environment where they work, over just salary alone. And Penang has that ingredient, right? Not only we have nice environment, heritage, culture, food.
We have very good lifestyle here,
yes.
actually.
So we are just one short step away. How do we make sure that there is value in terms of wages, in terms of there is economic potential for our talents? And I want to tell you that people do come back. Last year, as Minister of Labour, I actually assisted a specialist to come home from the UK. He chose to come home to practice after over a decade or two practicing in the UK. He wanted to come home, so now he's back here, a doctor in one of the local hospital in Penang. I've met a double PhD holder in Japan. She has mentioned, she said she wanted to come home, but of course there are many factors why people don't make the homecoming decision as yet. It's not just economic, because she's married to a Japanese, so there are many factors. But the fact is this: there is deep connection with the diaspora Penangites. And I think it is important to maintain this connection and at the same time power up our own situation here in Penang, so that one day when they come back, we are ready for them and they are ready for us.
Right, but this is, about the top tier talents, right? But what about, the ordinary people, right? So what is Penang still missing that prevents ordinary people, not just top tier talent, from achieving real upward mobility?
Interesting question. I think back to I think this state has a lot to offer, right? This country has a lot to offer. What we need is to make sure people get the right education, right? The right sort of exposure, the right sort of skills. There is a lot of discussion now. I think it's not even now. I think there's a lot of discussion have been going on in the past decade or so about how our education system are not producing or preparing the labour force for the actual work market. Right? So I think this is something that, although education is not the purview of the state government, this is something that the state has to also advocate together with our counterpart at the federal level to look at what is the sort of education, what is the sort of vocational education, technical education, or even general education that Penang would need to go into the 21st century, to do well, to go into Penang 3.0. And the federal government is more than happy. We are talking about investing in not just the conventional education system. We are talking about investing in vocational education. There's a lot of investment, a lot of resources put into TVET. We just created our first a dedicated AI faculty. So this is the moment for Penang. Penang has always, in the past 10-15 years, despite not being able to control education policy in general, Penang has never been passive when it comes to education.
Yeah.
For example, we have on our own initiative created Penang Science Cluster, organized long-term tech courses outside of school for young people in Penang. So I think this is where the effort and the strategy can go one notch higher, to have a closer discussion with the Education Ministry and look at Penang as an economy, as a society. Look at Penang in the next 10, 20 years, 50 years, and say what sort of opportunity we want for Penangites, so that they can come out and do well, as you said, social mobility.
Yeah, and just based on that social mobility part, right? So basically, fundamentally, right, does Penang need to rethink its social contract toward one that better supports risk-taking, entrepreneurship, and second chances, rather than just stability that we have had before this?
Social contract. It's very interesting that you touch on this very sensitive term, social contract. Now I'm put up my hat as the chairman of DAP Penang. I've always said that our goal is, or rather our mission is essentially boils down to this troika of aspiration. Number one, we must ensure that Penang remains the economic frontline state of Malaysia, because without growth, without economy, without money, without prosperity, we don't have to talk about other things. So we have to do that, right? Number two, we have to protect and defend. This is no compromise on this area. The multi-cultural, multi-racial, diverse society here in Penang. This is our identity, right? And this identity, as I pointed out, is our strength, not just as a society, socially, but also economically, right? because we are diverse, there is a compound of different strength, different experience, different culture. That becomes the Penang punya power lah. And finally, we have to become a more compassionate society or compassionate state. In any economic development, there will be groups that fall short. There will be vulnerable groups. So this is where I feel that Penang should be a place where people who do not do well, they are not left out from development. There should be a stronger social security net for people who live here. Because as we want the people to work hard. Just as the people wants the government to work hard, we want the people to work hard. But in case of the unfortunate few who has fallen along the way, and there is a solid social security net to keep them, to protect them.
And if you had to distill it all down, right, what would be the single most important priority that Penang must get right in the next decade to stay ahead?
This is a century. This is a age where everything must be distilled into one word or one sentence.
Sorry,
I think it's
short
much more.
attention
No,
span.
I know, I understand. I think it's much more multifaceted than this. But if there's one thing, we go back to the fundamental. It is mindset. Penang people, we are an enterprising state. We are a pioneering state, right? So I think we need that mindset to be amplified more than ever, right? To move away from the glorious past. We cannot be trapped into past successes. So we have to move away, not to move away rather, or to move beyond our previous successes. So mindset.
So mindset is the keyword basically of this whole podcast. And with that, thank you so much, YB Steven Sim Chee Keong, for speaking with us today. I've been speaking to YB Steven Sim Chee Keong, Minister of Entrepreneur and Cooperatives Development and Bukit Mertajam MP. This is Spill the Tea, a podcast by Penang Institute.
Come here. Thank you.